The last blog was about how the NDP's socialist ideology works in practice, rather than in theory. It doesn't, at least not for young people or for job-creating entrepreneurs. But for bureaucrats and the unions, it's Fat City. But now, what about the Liberals? Well, in my lifetime, I've lived under mostly Liberal governments, and the one I remember best is Pierre Trudeau's. Liberal name tag or not, Pierre Trudeau was a socialist, and when he took office in 1968, he put his ideology into high gear, claiming that it would result in what he called the just society. What we actually got was the broke society. Government programs sprouted like weeds, and for the next 25 years, so-called progressive governments routinely spent more than they took in. Debt became acceptable, even to so-called conservatives. By 1993, the accumulated deficits, or debt, had reached $420 billion. But we were getting all that free stuff from the government. Of course, it wasn't free. Our free stuff was paid for by other taxpayers, and their free stuff was paid for by us. But in the middle was the bureaucracy and the lenders, and they made out like bandits. Taxpayers were squeezed, and when governments can't squeeze any more from taxpayers, they borrow, just like Justin Trudeau intends to do. From 1867 until the debt crisis in 1993, our federal debt had grown to $420 billion. Of that, only $37 billion was borrowed to actually fund government programs. That means that over 90% of that $420 billion debt had been borrowed to pay interest on previous borrowing. We're still paying over $3 billion a month, just for interest. Finally, after more debt was incurred dealing with the worldwide recession that began in 2008, Canada's back in the black, running surpluses, and the economy is growing. Yet Justin intends to borrow again, run deficits, and grow the debt. Is our debt the legacy we want to leave our children and grandchildren? Many Canadians have come down with an emotional condition called Harper derangement syndrome. Visit some online discussion sites, and it's like reading the script from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Now, Harper's not warm and fuzzy. He does what's necessary to get his legislation passed, and he controls his caucus. But in the past year, Justin Trudeau has summarily fired all his Liberal senators. He's even blocked qualified candidates for this election in favor of his hand-picked choices. And he's actually told Liberals who don't agree with his position on abortion that you can't be a candidate. That's the Trudeau style. But that's also irrelevant. Elections shouldn't be about personalities or style, but about experience and proven ability. Our budget's back in surplus, our economy's growing, and we can reduce the size of the debt that our children will inherit. How about that for a legacy? According to the New York Times, which incidentally is a very liberal newspaper, Canada's middle class has become the world's wealthiest. And the fact is that the world's regard for Canada has become so positive that for 2 of the last 6 years, Canada's been ranked as the second best place in the world to live. The other 4 years, including this one, Canada's been ranked number 1. How's that for a legacy? I know we live in a postmodern society, but on Monday, shouldn't we vote with our heads and not our emotions? I'm Dave Reesor, and that's my perspective. If you believe in common sense politics, why not join Let's Do It Ourselves, our online community at LDIO.org. You'd be welcome.